You have come again. A gentle voice pierced through the world as a pair of eyes snapped open in shock, his gaze scanning around the room. It was none other than Ryuk, and in front of him was a place that was once familiar. It was a hall, a throne hall to be specific, and there were two thrones. One of them was pitch black, and on it sat a Ryuk covered in pitch-dark scales, an amusing smirk on his lips. To the right was a Ryuk covered in shimmering blue scales, an indifferent expression on his face, making his thoughts incredibly hard to read. They both looked at Ryuk, who stared back at them in surprise. He had seen these two before, and that was in the Fallen Argent Hall preliminary test. That was where he had last met them. If he remembered correctly, the last words he had been given before getting thrown out were the fact that he was still too weak. This meeting between us, young one, it is one that has been forced. It isn't time for us to meet yet. You're still too weak. Too weak. The words echoed in his head as he looked at the two Ryuks, who simply kept staring back at him. Ryuk slowly sat back down on the ground. There was nothing else he could do. They were vastly stronger than he was, so there was no forcing answers out of their mouths. And they also wouldn't harm him. Even if they wanted to, what could he do to prevent it? In the end, he could only save himself the headache and sit down. The hall was enveloped in silence before the sound of jittering steps rang out, and Ryuk watched the dark-scaled Ryuk stand upright on his throne. You have grown a bit compared to before. A bit quieter and duller, like this bastard right here, he said, flashing the blue-scaled Ryuk a glare. Ryuk himself turned to look at the blue-scaled one, but he made no reply. His gaze was still staring at Ryuk before he muttered, Your bloodline has grown a bit, and recently too. Your body must have been injured to an incredible level, yet somehow regenerating, developing into something different at the same time. The pain is monumental and should have been enough to kill you. So I brought you here, your will world. Hence, why you're here. The blue-scaled Ryuk explained to Ryuk, who furrowed his eyebrows for a while before he shrugged. His body had truly been gravely injured by the battle, and since he had requested for the system to pour all his attributes into his body, then his body must have been going through some type of evolution from so much power. It made sense that the procedure would be painful, and hence he was brought here by the two. So you both can see all I do from this place? Ryuk asked. Since the blue-scaled Ryuk had stated that he had brought him here and knew so much, it must mean they could somehow see him even from here. No. We can sense when you're in mortal danger and divert it. That's all. The dark-scaled Ryuk said as he stepped forward from the throne, coming to stand before Ryuk, who remained on his butt, looking up at him. Tell me, weakest one, do you know what we are now? The dark Ryuk asked, as Ryuk looked into his crimson eyes that seemed no different from his, and the dark abyssal scales over his body. He might have doubted their existence before, but now Ryuk had his idea. You signify my null bloodline. I don't know how you turned into me, but you signify one of my bloodlines, the null one to be specific. You're the personality and embodiment of it. Ryuk answered as the dark Ryuk snickered in mockery. Quarterly correct, he said as his hands grabbed at Ryuk's shoulder and raised him up to his feet. What about that one over there? Know him? He asked Ryuk, who turned to the blue one, who still kept looking at him with the same indifferent eyes. I don't know what he is. He muttered under his breath with furrowed eyebrows, something that rang clearly in the ears of the two Ryuks. The dark Ryuk only giggled. It's not surprising you don't. After all, their damn prideful royal bloodline is so godforsakenly rare in the first place. The dark-scaled Ryuk said, but all he got was indifference from the blue-scaled Ryuk, who never made any sound still, tapping constantly on the armrest of the chair. Have you seen the dreams? The blue-scaled Ryuk suddenly asked, his voice ringing through the entire halls, causing Ryuk to raise an eyebrow. What dream? He asked once more, but the blue-scaled Ryuk just kept looking at him. And that was when Ryuk's eyes narrowed. He could remember that dream of him being chased through the snow-filled world by unknown voices chasing him. Voices so scary he couldn't turn back his head and could only keep running. The thought made Ryuk's body go rigid, something the two other Ryuks noticed, and they stared at each other, this time with a serious expression on their faces, before the dark Ryuk instantly faded away and appeared back on his throne. "I guess you have," the blue-scaled Ryuk said, and Ryuk asked, "The dream, what does it mean?" "It means, it is near," the blue-scaled Ryuk said, sitting upright and staring at Ryuk. "What is near?" he asked as the blue-scaled Ryuk replied. "In that dream of yours, what were you referred to as?" he suddenly asked as Ryuk's eyebrows flashed, his memories quickly filtering through the dreams, and he answered, "Little Dark One. I was called Little Dark One." He responded as the blue-scaled Ryuk turned his indifferent gaze to the dark Ryuk, who shrugged helplessly. "Then they are the ones coming for you. You're nulls." "What are they coming for?" Ryuk asked, drawing the attention of the Dark One, who smiled sinisterly. "Your life." The revelation didn't shock Ryuk much, although he unconsciously took a step back, fear written all over his face. This drew the amused smirk of the dark Ryuk and the indifference of the blue-scaled one. But Ryuk's thoughts were turning fast. They might be in me, but they don't know everything. If they watched the Uncle Bob prophecy holographics with me, they would have learned that I already know people will be coming to take my life. But they don't seem to know. And the Dark One also seems surprised to realize that I have discovered I am a null myself, something I learned from the stats in the race tab. If they don't know that, it must mean they don't know about the system too, Ryuk analyzed, but he was awoken by the question. "What's wrong, weakest one? Afraid of death?" the dark-haired Ryuk asked, noticing the faint sweat dripping down the side of Ryuk's face. "Is there someone who isn't afraid of death?" Ryuk asked in return, causing the dark-haired Ryuk to chuckle. "Someone? There are countless people in this universe unafraid of death. And among them are the people coming for you. They won't fear death. You'll be doomed if you face them, fearing death like a weakling," the dark-haired Ryuk said from his throne, as Ryuk's eyebrows furrowed. "I guess you're right then, Uncle Bob. They are truly coming for me, and if they won't be fearing death, they must either be immortal or just really so strong that death isn't even an option for them when facing me. Is this what you meant by me having to grow faster than they can imagine?" he asked in his mind, but then his gaze sharpened. "I need to learn more from these two. You talked of my will growing. What does it mean?" Ryuk asked the blue-scaled one, whose eyes flashed with a blue light. Ryuk felt a strange silence descend on the room as he turned to look at the dark-haired one, who still stood where he was before. His lips parted, widening to his ears, and he muttered, "You shouldn't have asked that, weakest one," he mused. Immediately, Ryuk focused his attention back on the blue-scaled Ryuk, who slowly rose up from his throne, his indifferent gaze boring into Ryuk's figure. "You ask me what will is, young one?" the blue-scaled Ryuk asked him, his voice as emotionless as ever. Yet this time, Ryuk felt a different emotion, the meaning of disbelief. "Do you not feel my will?" he asked Ryuk, whose face contorted as he watched the blue-scaled Ryuk slowly stretch out his leg and place it gently on the first step. Instantly, Ryuk's face changed. Crackck. Boom! The entire world seemed to shatter into pieces as a loud roaring sound filled Ryuk's head. In the next instant, the ground beneath him shook badly as Ryuk's two knees slammed into the ground, crushing it from the power. But it wasn't Ryuk's power. What is this?" Ryuk asked in shock as he looked at the shattered ground before him with widened eyes. He jerked his head upwards, only to catch sight of the blue-scaled Ryuk, who calmly raised his second leg and then placed it on the second step. Boom! Grrrrrhhhhhh. A groan of pain escaped Ryuk's lips from the power pressing down on him, as his two hands slammed into the ground, barely holding his body up. What is going? Step. Boom. The sound of the next step being taken was heard, and in the next instant, Ryuk's head fully smashed into the ground as his hands lost their strength, and he remained on the ground, bowing then, his eyes flashing in horror. What is going on? This pressure. It's not affecting my body. If it was, I should have been crushed to a paste right now. Instead, it is attacking something else, something else. Step. Ryuk's entire body smashed completely into the ground, face flat, unable to move a muscle as the ground beneath him continued shattering into fragments. The space around him, having its gravity increased by thousands of times, pressed hard onto him. With crimson veins wriggling over his face like those of a demon, Ryuk slowly, barely, raised his head up, sighting the feet that were now before him. Grrrhhhhhh. A groan of pain left his lips as he forced his neck just a few inches upward to sight the blue-scaled Ryuk, who had the same indifferent expression on his face. Can you feel it now? What will is? The blue-scaled Ryuk asked Ryuk, who felt it harder to breathe, the air seizing from the area as his head slammed harshly back into the ground, unable to resist the force any longer. Just like a murgy, all of it began fading away as Ryuk coughed out his lungs, turning and lying on his back, horror all over his face. So this is it. This is the power of will. He was pressing his own will against my will, and he absolutely crushed me into nothing with his will alone. Somehow, Ryuk felt the blue-scaled Ryuk had shown only a fraction of what his will was truly capable of. Yet just that little was enough to send him lying face-flat on the ground. Rise! The blue-scaled Ryuk commanded, and beyond Ryuk's will, he was forced onto his feet, only to fall down from the weakness of his legs. But he managed to land on one knee instead. Your will is too weak. You won't survive when your nulls come for your life, the blue-scaled Ryuk said, his indifferent gaze changing to one of concern, and a deep frown of anger crossed his face, causing Ryuk to go silent. You need more power. More will, he said, and Ryuk couldn't help but feel a sense of helplessness. He had only arrived here because he had fought like a madman with the beasts. He had been fighting his best. All his life he had been fighting his best. All he ever got was that he was too weak and he needed more. It was nauseating. It was angering him. Would anyone in this godforsaken world ever notice his accomplishments at all? Will they ever see the hard work he puts in every day just to get more power? How? How else do I get more power? How? The outburst from Ryuk surprised them, and they looked at him with narrowed eyes. But then, he felt a hand grab onto his shoulder, and as he raised his gaze, he met flickering blue eyes staring back at him. I can sense your will for power. It is strong, but there's also a hint of helplessness, the blue-scaled Ryuk said, as Ryuk's folded fists slowly relaxed. But I have a way to give you power. I don't know if you're truly ready for it because of your incomplete body. The blue-scaled Ryuk continued, as Ryuk's eyes narrowed. I can bear it, Ryuk suddenly declared, but a chuckle rang out from the lips of the dark-scaled Ryuk, who sat on the throne and watched from the side. Do you even know what you're going to bear at all? The blue-scaled Ryuk scoffed. I don't know what it is, but I am sure I can bear it, Ryuk replied firmly. Ryuk knew well that he had potential. These two figures in front of him were parts of himself, and somehow, he felt they were powers he had yet to unlock. Even more, they seemed to be vastly stronger and more knowledgeable than he was. He needed them. He needed their power, and he couldn't give in or show the slightest sign of weakness. Faintly, in his heart, something told him that if he was ever to survive the apocalypse that would soon come for him, then these two people were major cards in his hand. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. The sound of laughter suddenly rang out, and when Ryuk turned his head, he found it coming from the dark-scaled Ryuk, whose eyes flashed with an abyssal red light. You say you're ready for it? Ready for our power? He asked, as the blue-scaled Ryuk also chuckled at him. You have no body, weakest one. Power needs a vessel to bear. How do you hope to bear our power if you have no body at all? All you have is the little blood flowing in you, but even that is not enough. You weird nanobody seems strong to you, but it's just trash. Nanobody, technology, those are just inferior paths of cultivation. To call them cultivation at all is a shame on its own, the dark-scaled Ryuk explained. Ryuk opened his mouth, ready to argue that his nanobody was that of an Anunnaki, an ancient race, but he closed his lips, his shoulders sinking. Something the other Ryuk saw as a sign of defeat. You may have no vessel to contain power, but you do have your soul and consciousness. Those are vessels of power. The power of the will. That can be cultivated, the blue-scaled Ryuk said, as the dark-scaled Ryuk harumphed coldly. Don't be stupid. His soul is weak. If you give him even the smallest fragment of your will, his soul flame will be extinguished, and he will die. The dark-scaled Ryuk snapped. But the blue-scaled Ryuk slowly turned his gaze to him. And if you passed him your dark will, he would become a mindless dark beast, ruled by its desire to devour all things. He would cease to be himself and become nothing but a mindless creature. What's any better in that? The blue-scaled Ryuk retorted, and the dark-scaled Ryuk quieted down. If we're to wait until he's strong enough to bear our power, that time won't be coming anytime soon, and he might as well be killed by the nulls. Either path leads to his death. So why not risk it? All or nothing. Don't you agree, young one? The blue-scaled Ryuk asked, as Ryuk's heart unervingly thumped harder within him. Looking into the eyes of the blue-scaled Ryuk, he could see that one of the runic lines in his irises was shining with a bright, insane light that shook Ryuk to his core. I understand, Ryuk said, but his eyes flashed in shock the next second when RIP. Something ripped straight into the side of Ryuk's chest, tearing out from behind him. It was none other than the claws of the blue-scaled Ryuk. Ryuk stared in shock into the flashing runes in his assailant's eyes, blood pouring from his lips. Why? He asked in confusion and regret as he felt life rapidly leaving his body. But the smile of the blue-scaled Ryuk only grew wider. For your own good, he replied to Ryuk, whose last vestiges of life finally faded away. His head dropped limply to the side, but still, his body was held by the blue-scaled Ryuk, who raised Ryuk up on his feet with his hand still pierced into his chest. Slowly he closed his eyes. The last thing he heard was, "It all ends once he's gone, Pride. It all ends." But the blue-scaled Ryuk paid no attention. His eyes fully closed, and they both stood in the same position. Ryuk with his feet dangling in the air, droplets of blood raining down, while the blue-scaled Ryuk held him, his indifferent expression morphing into one of seriousness. Coldness. Intense coldness. That was what Ryuk first felt as his consciousness finally faded away. It was dark, pitch dark. But then something began appearing. A weird blue light, slowly magnifying toward Ryuk. While lost, he stretched out his hands towards it. Slowly, he moved them until finally he grabbed at the light, and in the next instant he was rapidly pulled into somewhere different. Ba-am. The ground shook heavily as Ryuk crashed into it, a groan of pain leaving his lips. But then, he felt himself regain control of his body, and with a single tap of his foot, he jumped away from where he was, rapidly appearing 3 meters away, and senses tuned to the max. When Ryuk looked in front of him, though, his lips parted in shock. It's you." His voice thundered through the golden hall, where a gigantic golden throne stood at its end, and on it sat none other than the blue-scaled Ryuk who had torn through his heart. He was no stranger to the sight before him, but even then, Ryuk felt something different. The area around him was large, almost endless, and the Ryuk before him seemed a bit different from the one he knew. For one, his gaze, which was normally filled with pure indifference, now held an unnerving amount of disdain toward existence itself. So much disdain, in fact, that Ryuk felt fear just standing before him. Before this Ryuk, it was as if he shouldn't even exist at all. And the tactile thought, of killing himself just to disappear from this gaze assaulted him, causing him to take steps backward in shock. A shiver appeared in Ryuk's eyes as his left hand grabbed onto his right hand, stopping it in its tracks. But Ryuk saw what was happening. What the hell is happening? Ryuk asked in horror as he felt his own left hand slowly take the hilt of the steel with his right hand and then, RIP. Ryuk's left hand grabbed his throat and began squeezing hard as thick, red veins bulged in his arms. I am killing myself. His eyes dilated from shock. His head unable to wrap itself around the idea. Yet, when he felt the air being cut off from his lungs and the grip tightening in his heart as it slowed its beat, the realization hit him like a cold blade. And instantly something changed for Ryuk. From horror and shock, it began shifting to anger. Anger at the realization that his own body had tried to kill itself simply for appearing before an entity. Never in his life had he cowered before anyone to such a level. To kill himself for appearing before someone? Go away! Ryuk roared in fury, as insane rage flooded into his mind. Instantly, his right hand stabbed at his left shoulder, and then, Re-Thyrip. The sound of something being torn apart rang out through the room, as the golden-haired Ryuk calmly watched from his throne. Splat. The sound of something dropping to the ground echoed in the hall, and it was none other than an arm belonging to Ryuk himself. Ah! 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 Intense chuckles rang out from the blue-scaled Ryuk's lips as he saw droplets of red raining down by Ryuk's side. In the place where his right arm ought to be now nothing but an empty stump. Eventually, he had no choice but to rip out his own arm to avoid killing himself. Clap, clap, clap. The sound of clapping suddenly rang out through the golden hall as Ryuk turned his angered gaze to the one sitting on the throne. He watched as the figure clapped both hands together, a mocking smirk plastered across his face. Your inferior self trying to bring an end to you shows its own will. Its will of insignificance before my existence, the figure said in a condescending tone, as Ryuk clicked his tongue. But even when your body wishes to bring an end to you, your true will refused. That is the will. Your body might cower. It is natural for the body to fear, young one. And when it fears, it cowers, it goes numb. It tries to surrender itself. In extreme situations like you have just witnessed, it even tries to eliminate itself, just to avoid this. The golden-scaled Ryuk spoke, but Ryuk's eyes flashed in shock as he suddenly found a figure standing just a few inches before him. And in the next instant, Ba-anoning! The floor of the hall shook violently as Ryuk's 2 feet collapsed beneath him. An incredible force assaulted him, and immediately, his head smashed into the ground. From the power alone, his body was pressed flat. Not again! Ryuk roared in anger, which increased monumentally when he felt a foot slam into his head, carving cracks beneath his skull as blood poured out from his ears. Bong! 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 Your body will never be who you are as one with the royal blood. What will truly determine you is your will. Bong! Your will made you believe you were worthy of standing before me. Your will that ripped out your arm when your body cowered in fear. Bong! It moves, it acts even when the body cowers. Even when the body is in horror. Even when the body surrenders. The will rises. Bong! One is never truly defeated in body. To defeat the body is never something to be prideful of. Hurt a person's body, and you have still done nothing to them. Bong! The foot slammed down once more on Ryuk's head. His entire face now covered completely in crimson, none other than his own blood. Slowly, the Ryuk on the throne took his foot off Ryuk's head, before grabbing him by the hair and pulling him up into the air. His blue eyes stared deep into Ryuk's almost lifeless ones, and with a grin, he released Ryuk's hair, causing him to naturally fall to the ground. But then, boom! Blood splashed out of Ryuk's lips as his chest caved in completely and instantly from a puck into his chest, and then, bam! 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 He was sent into the distance, slamming into various golden pillars in the area, ripping through them before finally smashing into the ground and skidding to a stop. Blergggggh. He coughed out blood once more, as he felt the sound of footsteps approaching him. Horrific pain. Pain he had never felt before in his life. Assaulted his head before he barely managed to raise it, finding the Ryuk who was toying with him. But then he noticed something in his hands. Ryuk's own remaining arm. Bastard! If you do damage to a person's body, it isn't necessarily a defeat, young one. You injure someone and think you have defeated them. That is the belief in this world. But that doesn't apply to our royal race. An entity is determined by his own will. Only when the will is crushed is a person truly defeated. The body? Nothing but a vessel that hides its will. Irrelevant, no matter how much it is damaged. Blarg! Blood burst out of Ryuk's lips like a broken tap, as he felt the intense force rippling through his body. But the sound of the rippling airwave above his head jolted him awake. Instantly, he bounded off the ground with his own body, the floor where his head had previously laid cracking to pieces as a foot smashed into it, sending shards of the floor flying around. So, if the will is truly all that defines a person to our own race, do you know what this means? The blue-scaled Ryuk said as he slowly turned his gaze to the side where Ryuk stood. His body bent in exhaustion with blood oozing out from both severed arms. It means, the scaled Ryuk said as he slowly raised his palm and stretched it towards Ryuk, who instantly tried sprinting away. But he had barely taken the third step when his entire body hung in the air, unable to move a muscle. My movement is restricted. I can't move a muscle, Ryuk thought in shock. But the true horror came when the blue-scaled Ryuk raised his outstretched arm. Instantly, Ryuk felt a force lifting him from his feet and then, bam! His body crashed into the upper ceiling of the Golden Hall, sending cracks across its surface as blood rained down from above like a rain. Its source was none other than Ryuk, whose eyes bulged from the pain. But it was only the beginning. Remaining in his stance was the blue-scaled Ryuk, whose fingers simply moved around, and the entire area shook violently. Ryuk's body followed every single finger movement, smashing through the wall before finally, with a simple press of a finger, Ryuk was sent crashing headfirst onto the ground. Half of his body buried within the golden floor, with both legs dangling in the air. In less than 10 seconds, red blood filled up the pothole where Ryuk's head had crashed into as the blue-scaled Ryuk calmly walked forward, appearing just a few inches before him. But then, boom! The air shook as Ryuk's hanging leg suddenly slammed forward with speed towards the blue-scaled Ryuk. But mere inches before it could reach his face. Wrist. Lines appeared all over Ryuk's feet, and then his legs burst into pieces, sending fragments of nanobots and blood splashing through the area. Ryuk crawled out of the pothole, his cunning smirk still lingering on his face, until he saw his own bloody leg. Ergurgah! The pain of losing the leg was even more intense than losing his arms, being the first time. The pain assaulted his mind as he barely tried moving backward, but the blue-scaled Ryuk swung his hand towards his other leg, and then, like a knife through butter, Ryuk's other leg fell to the ground. Ryuk himself jumped back, but with no legs, he landed on his back, sending splashes of blood around. Ah! Turbid white air escaped his lips as he looked up at the ceiling, finding the golden white expanse above. But then, his gaze was covered by the sole of a foot, and then, BOM! A kick smashed straight into his face, sending splashes of blood around the area. But it was only the beginning, as the foot continued raining down, each strike sending even more blood around. After what seemed like an eternity, it finally stopped, revealing the picture of Ryuk, all of his arms and limbs having been ripped off, and his face completely bashed in. Yet, even through all the pain and battering, it was clear to Ryuk, a fact his body couldn't yet come to terms with. I can't activate nanobody abilities, and my skills aren't responding. I don't have mana either, and the system isn't responding, he thought to himself, his remaining eyes dulling. Is this it? He thought, as he watched the blue-scaled Ryuk slowly crouch down before sitting on the ground beside Ryuk's head, his disdainful expression now morphing back to his indifferent one. There's a power in this world, young one. It's referred to as Etherius, he said quietly, just enough for Ryuk to pick up with his hearing. The second the word was uttered, it echoed through his entire essence as his bloody lips tried to move and whisper it. Ris. Many races believe in the body, and they cultivate the body. They make it bigger. They make it stronger. They make it more durable. They make it more resistant. They search for the limits that the body can hold. Some races are born with weak bodies that can't hold much energy, and what they do is try to make up for this inadequacy in their body. Some of them are like you with your nanobody, Because you have no body, you decided to mesh the nanobody with yourself. Every day you cultivate, trying to reach the limits of your nanobody. You're not special. There are thousands of ways out there for those with low body potential, and to gain strength, they fuse with things just to increase their body's potential. Although most of these races are labeled as inferior because their true bodies lack potential. Mixing with other things can only take you so far. But everyone forgets an energy that wouldn't pale even to the power of the body. Everyone forgets Etherius, the power of will. The body can be destroyed, can be ripped apart, can be bathed in blood, and eliminated. The blue-scaled Ryuk continued, looking at Ryuk's own severed and mutilated body with indifferent eyes. But to those who understand the power of Etherius, they understand well, the body is useless. A person's only death happens when their will fades away. Etherius, he continued, you could even say is the power of immortality, the true key to remaining undying. Mana is powerful. Apex energy is powerful. But all of these energies are nothing but derivatives from Etherius, the sole true power. And do you know something, young one? He asked, turning his gaze to look into Ryuk's worn eyes. In this universe where countless new races exist, there's no race in the world that cultivates Etherius better than our royal race does. None. With Etherius being so rare, the number of people who cultivate it at all can be counted on one hand. It is why we are referred to as royalty. We are controllers of Etherius, an energy beyond mana and apex energy, the true, absolute source of power in this universe. None controls it better than we do. And you, young one, are one of us. One of us, Ryuk said, as he felt the entire world suddenly pause. Then the blue-scaled Ryuk muttered, "Yes, you are one of us Jade Dragons," he declared. Ryuk's eyes bulged in shock, and his severed body suddenly began spasming, sending blood splashing through the area. His destroyed eyes reopened, and light began flashing in them. I can remember," Ryuk thought. Immediately, the blue-scaled Ryuk turned his head behind him, looking at Ryuk's severed arm and the blood droplets all over the area, rising into the air as if they lacked the control of gravity. "I can remember. Let our corpses pile into the very depths of the highest heavens. We will make sure it becomes nothing but a barricade you will never cross. We will never bow." The roar shook to the very depths of the soul, resonating through the entire world as Ryuk paused, frozen in his tracks. Looking around, he found himself seemingly in the far depths of the void, staring deep into the distance below, where a fearsome group stood. They weren't human, nor would it be right to call them animals. They were entities. Entities so ginormous their mere bodies rivaled the stars, their auras enough to bring ruin upon entire solar systems. Scales forged from the remnants of dead stars, obsidian black with veins of molten silver and gold, pulsated like the lifeblood of galaxies. Each face was jagged and spiked, reflecting light in fractured splinters like shards of shimmering nebulae. Some shimmered with the deepest hues of distant quasars, while others glowed coldly like frozen starlight. Claws like sickles of dark matter, longer than mountain ranges, honed to an edge sharp enough to slice through entire worlds as though they were paper. Every flick of their claws sent space and reality groaning, as if existence itself resisted their intrusion. Their heads were crowned with horns of void stones, spiraling like the arms of galaxies, their torsos cascading with the stardust of dying suns. Their mouths were vast maws, with teeth like obsidian spears, capable of rending through the layers of planets and tearing apart the very fabric of dimensions. When Ryuk gazed into their jaws, he saw a slight void spill out, not flame, but a breath that devoured, unmaking anything it touched. Their eyes were like twin galaxies, swirling and burning with the fury of collapsing suns. Twin supernovas staring into the infinite abyss with raw rage. Each beat of their four wings sent ripples through the cosmic ether, visibly distorting time and space as if the universe itself trembled from their raging will. These are dragons?" Ryuk asked in shock. But were these dragons? No, The more accurate description would be celestial cataclysms. A scattered, mere existence wrapped in gravity, pulling in smaller celestial bodies with each crash of their aura, their very form being too colossal to contain. "Oh, you dragons!" The voice, sounding like nails scraping against metal, suddenly resonated from a distance even farther than where the dragons stood. Ryuk instantly jerked his head toward the sound but saw nothing but vast darkness. His gaze couldn't pierce through it, yet he could feel the intense, deathly energy radiating forth, enough to suck away every single life force in the void. It was a darkness darker than darkness itself. "Will you really all give away your immortal lives just for a single soul?" The voice came, crumbling out from the intense darkness. But the answer came swiftly when a claw swung forth with absolute power towards the darkness. Time, space, void. Everything in the path of these claws shattered into pieces, and its source was from a blue-scale dragon, unlike any of the others. This one stood behind, more than 3 times bigger than even the largest dragon around. "Fine then. May you all perish, in the name of your Draconis." The angered and painful roar surged back out from the darkness where Ryuk's gaze barely caught a hand, its shape like the depth of the darkest abyss. But something more echoed inside Ryuk as he stood in the depths of the void, his eyes bulging in shock, as the name resonated through his mind. "Draconis! Draconis! I am the Draconis!" The realization hit Ryuk like a maelstrom. The entire world and vision shattered into pieces, and in the next instant, an incredibly powerful roar shook the entire Golden Hall, sending the hard ground lifting off into the distance. The pillars holding the hall were sent flying back, and even the blue-scaled Ryuk's eyes dilated in shock as he felt his own foot dragged across the ground, along with flying debris pushing him away from Ryuk. Ryuk's body floated in the air, blue light surrounding him. He finally awakened! The roar of shock boomed out from the blue Ryuk's lips. Suddenly, the entire hall fractured to echoes as the blue Ryuk's eyes opened wide at the scene of his hand ripping into Ryuk's chest. But his face hung in intense astonishment when a horrific aura slammed into his body, sending him flying away. He crashed into his throne, shattering it into nothing but pieces before slamming into the wall behind him, sending cracks rippling through the entire surface. But shock continued to cover his face when he looked at Ryuk, whose entire body was covered by a cocoon of starlight blue energy. From within, he could hear beastly roars surging forth, like one from an insane jade dragon. But soon, the light faded away, and a figure was revealed. A figure whose very essence sent shock to the deepest spines of both Ryuks. A loud hum echoed through the abyss of darkness, followed by clattering sounds like chains clunking together. If one could see through the abyss, they would witness interlocking chains, spanning over thousands of kilometers with a thickness of around 5 meters, lacing and weaving around a pit dug deeper and deeper into the depths of the abyss. But suddenly something opened. Blood-red eyes, marked with crimson runes, flared to life, an intense dark aura squirming within them like snakes. The space before the eyes shattered into thousands of fragments from their mere opening, the heavy chains clattering and teetering on the edge of being ripped to bits. "I sense the aura of the Draconis." The words echoed through the abyss, piercing through the noise of the meandering chains to ring out clearly through the darkness. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything quieted down. The ginormous eyes slowly closed back. "The end times. Is it finally beginning?" Those were the last words before the eyes shot close completely, the clanking chains slowly coming to a stop before everything was reduced to darkness once again. Crackle. Crackle. It was a world bathed in crimson lightning bolts, raining down from the blood-red clouds, striking apart the ground, and carving abysses with every strike. The roar of lightning was what filled the entire world, for miles and miles on end, a suffocating aura of intense chaos and destruction running through the lands. It continued unendingly, as if it had been present since the end of times, until suddenly, everything came to a chilling stop. And then, a face appeared in the sky, one covered in squirming red and black runes, forming a demonic mask. But what was most eye-catching were the giant, grotesque horns, close to 500 meters in length, sticking out of the figure's head. Its abyss-like eyes pierced downward, almost as if they could cut through the ground, drilling farther and farther into the depths beneath. This distasteful yet familiar aura, the figure's thick voice echoed through the lightning-filled world, akin to the roar of titans. The ground beneath him cracked into rubble, unable to bear the power of his words. I know it. It's the aura of the Draconis. He has finally awakened? The figure spoke before an abysmal grin lit up on its face, lightning crackling around the dark, rust-covered horns.
Hehehehehehe.
An ear-piercing, evil cackle rang out through the world as the crimson lightning bolts increased by thousands of folds. The end of time is finally beginning. Has he awakened? The surprised voice rang out as the blue-scaled Ryuk called out the question to the dark-scaled Ryuk, as they both currently had their eyes on Ryuk. There was almost no difference between the Ryuk from before and the Ryuk standing now, except that this time, the ripped-open hole in his chest had closed back. Now there was a blue runic tattoo, coming out directly from his left blue eye and radiating outward towards his eyebrows. The image formed a full circle, tending towards his right eye, but unable to extend past it. Somehow, it looked like an incomplete rune, but the power oozing out from those blue runic lines was enough to send the pulses of the two Ryuks spiraling out of control. This is Aetherus? The calm voice rippled through the space like a melody, ringing clearly in the ears of the two Ryuks, whose pulses visibly calmed at the sound of the words. He's still the same being. Both Ryuks thought as the dark-scaled Ryuk clapped his hands. Good job, weakest one. Now that you... Ryuk! The word came out, stopping the dark-scaled Ryuk's words dead in their tracks. Call me Ryuk, Ryuk stated once more, his face holding calmness, yet a brewing storm swirled in his eyes as he stared at the dark-scaled Ryuk. The dark-scaled Ryuk paused, his eyes narrowing, but then a wicked grin flashed across his face as he rose from his throne. I call you the weakest one because that's what you are. If you want me to change, prove to me you don't deserve it, he said, and in the next instant, he faded into thin air. Less than a split second later, Ryuk felt a ghostly dark claw magnifying towards his face, inching closer and closer with every passing moment. But somehow, something was different. Even though the dark-scaled Ryuk had sped with such speed and appeared before him almost instantaneously, his moving claws were so slow, so ridiculously slow that Ryuk could see every inch of the hands magnifying toward him as they passed through the air. Even the ripples of their movement seemed incredibly slow to Ryuk, and with a simple will, cracks spread out from the friction of the ghostly dark claws. Shock flashed in the eyes of the dark-scaled Ryuk when he saw his claws hanging just a few inches from Ryuk's face. No matter how much energy he exerted, the claws never came closer at all. It was almost as if they were being held by some sort of invisible energy. The dark-scaled Ryuk growled. This is Aetherus. I hate that energy. The dark-scaled Ryuk snarled as a dark runic circle appeared in his crimson eyes, glowing with a bizarre energy that Ryuk instantly identified. Void energy? You might have awakened Aetherus, but it's not invincible, he said as he slashed forwarding with his claws. R-I-I-P-P-P. S-H-A-T-T-D-R-R. Instantly, the space before Ryuk's face shattered like glass, and the claws surged forward, piercing through. But before they could move an inch further, boom! The dark-scaled Ryuk was suddenly sent flying into the side of the wall, crashing into it and carving a long spiderweb of crack across its surface. A figure now stood where he had once been, and it was none other than the blue-scaled Ryuk, who stretched a finger out, trailing the runes on Ryuk's left eye. How interesting! He mused before he took his hand off Ryuk's face and rose upright. Yes, that is Aetherus. It is the manifestation of your willpower. The blue-scaled Ryuk answered Ryuk's question, and Ryuk couldn't help but raise his hands to feel the tattoo on his eyes. The cultivation of Etherius must be treated just like the cultivation of Apex energy. But I suppose you don't have any manual to cultivate it, as that world of yours will have no idea it even exists. I'm afraid you will have no choice but to find a way to increase it yourself, or the basic level will be all you ever manage to reach, for as long as you stay in that low-level world. All I can say is that your Etherius is the manifest energy of your willpower. Train your willpower, and your Etherius increases. Right now, you're at the most basic level of it, so be aware of your abilities. Etherius gives the illusion of ultimate power, but it's an illusion. Just because you can bend reality to your won't necessarily make you invincible. True power can still rip through your will and defeat you. You're not invincible, far from it, the blue-scaled Ryuk said. But both of them suddenly jerked their heads toward the place where the dark-scaled Ryuk rested, finding him having slipped out from the cracks in the wall, currently crouched on the ground, his left crimson eye flaring with a runic circle. One last time, dragon. And I swear by the abyss, I will rip your hearts out of you. The voice was so chilling that all of Ryuk's hair rose from his skin, an intense feeling of rage overwhelming his entire existence. The ground beneath the red-scaled Ryuk cracked into pieces as the entire hall began to shake, as if a titan was awakening. And I swear by your abyss, I will wipe you out of existence, along with any vestige of life that might be present in you, in the most dominating way your kind has ever come across. The blue-scaled Ryuka said, his eyes as indifferent as ever, yet with a seriousness that shook Ryuk's heart. The pressure between both Ryukas increased monumentally, rising every second, and Ryuk knew hell would await if this continued any longer. He warmed his throat, causing a low in the pressure hanging in the air. I do not want conflict between you both. If this is my inner world, your fight will do nothing but bring an end to it. It will only do more damage than good. Still, I will not agree to be referred to as the weakest one any longer. I might be the weakest, but I have a name, and it's Ryuk. Refer to me by my bestowed name. That only makes sense. Even if you defeat me now, I'm sure you can't kill me. And one day, when you finally stop calling me the weakest one, it won't be because you wish to. It will be because you will no longer exist, as I will bring an end to you for that. I can do that, even if not now. I can, and I will if you keep referring to me as what is not mine. You don't want to undergo that risk, do you? Ryuk asked, his voice carrying the vestige of surrender, yet with undeniable confidence and will in his ability to eliminate the dark Ryuk, who had a vein burst out on his head like anger itself. But just when everything would fall into chaos, he soon rose to his feet, his aura disappearing as his crimson eyes returned to their normal dull color. Standing so close to the blue-scaled Ryuk, Ryuk could feel himself unknowingly heave a sigh of relief at the red-scaled Ryuka's calm. It seemed the blue-scaled Ryuk also sensed it, and the words echoed in Ryuk's mind. He might be a bit weaker than me and slightly subservient to my will, but there's a transformation of his that is very difficult to deal with. In fact, if I faced that form of his, I could get killed by him, even though it would be a mutual death between both of us. And you will take the most damage by losing your bloodline. The only reason he doesn't unleash that transformation is because of the expensive cost that follows. But if pushed too far, there's no saying what he would do. Don't underestimate the null, young one. He is strong. Horrifically strong. The blue-scaled Ryuk's thoughts echoed in his mind as the dark-scaled Ryuk grinned heavily. Your actions now are like the tantrum of a spoiled kid. Once you awaken me, you will realize how foolish you are, weakest one, the dark-scaled Ryuk called, in mockery, before he appeared on his throne, sitting and seemingly falling into slumber. He's stubborn, that's for sure, Ryuk thought in his head. But then he noticed his body slowly dispersing into tiny bits of light as he furrowed his eyebrows. I have opened a door of limitless power for you, young one. Hopefully, when next we meet, the you that you are now will be nothing but a shadow of your true self. Those were the last words Ryuk heard before he was sent away from the hall. When he opened his eyes, he opened them to a pair of blue eyes, holding bizarre, flaked runic lines staring down at him. You're awake. The familiar voice rang out in Ryuk's head as the world slowly cleared up and his senses returned, feeling the soft scales of the familiar creature. Yes, Isha. I am, Ryuk replied, sitting up on his butt. But then his eyes flashed as he rose to his feet, the home and tent that housed him suddenly dispersing to ashes as Ryuk felt the world clear up. It was currently twilight, reminding him of the eclipsed cascade. He stared at the 2 moons in the sky, both of which were full. Why do I feel like so much time has passed? Ryuk mused to himself, looking at his hands, which were as smooth as ice and whiter than frost. Unconsciously, he called in his mind, "Activate system interface." Congratulations, host has successfully leveled up a total of 7 times, reaching level 40 from a previous level of level 33. Assessment is as follows. Level 33 to level 34. 144000/10,000 EXP. Level 34 to level 35. 134,000/13,000 EXP. Level 35 to level 36. 121,000/17,000 EXP. Level 36 to level 37. 104,000/20,000 EXP. Level 37 to level 38. 84,000/24,000 EXP. Level 38 to level 39. 60,000/27,000 EXP. Level 39 to level 40. 30,000/30,000 EXP. Total EXP remaining 0/33,000. A total of 20 attribute points was given to MC on reaching level 40. Total attribute points obtained from the level up 110. To balance the attribute points like host instructed, a total of 44 attribute points were poured into endurance to make it reach the stats points of 200, and a total of 66 attribute points were poured into intelligence. The remainder of the attribute points obtained from the level up has been allocated. Does host understand? The system asked as Ryuk's eyebrow furrowed at the panel. I had thought the EXP from the killing of the mutated beast should be enough to make all my stats level up to level 200. But I forgot, with every level up, the quota XP increases. I only got 7 level ups, and the attribute points are not enough to balance all my stats. Ryuk thought with furrowed eyebrows before he commanded. Continue. Congratulations on host teaching level 40. Hidden quest complete. Reward. Plus 10,000 purchase point. Congratulations. Host has successfully been able to achieve a second evolution of his nanobody. The total of 100 permanent attribute points has been added to all of Host's unlocked stats. Host has awakened new nano skills. Congratulations. Host has awakened a new energy, Etherius. Systems Shop has now been tuned to the development stage, boosting the probability of buying manuals to cultivate Etherius in the shop, the system said as Ryuk chuckled. Etherius might be the rarest energy in the world, but with my shop, I can still buy the manuals and cultivate it, Ryuk mused to himself. Compared to the blue-scale dragon thought of it being R and me getting stuck at the basic until I leave Endearth. With that, I can grow beyond their expectations. Ryuk mused in his head as the notifications continued flashing. Host has awakened a new set of skills from his awakening of Etherius. Host's unknown bloodline has finally been found. Host is half null and half jade dragon. Congratulations, Host has awakened a part of his primordial tree, which belongs to his half-jade dragon side, and the source of this power is none other than Etherius. Host has awakened new skills that pertain to his true bloodline, Jade Dragon. Congratulations! Due to the awakening of the Draconic bloodline, which is a higher beastly bloodline, Host's contracted slots have increased from 2 to 10. Host can now contract up to 10 new pets. Due to the awakening of Etherius, all of Host's skills have increased to level 30. Truly massive improvements. Ryuk thought in his mind as he watched the panel finally change. System interface. Name. Ryuk Null. Race. Half Null, half Jade Dragon. Class. Beast Sovereign. Age. 17. Apex Energy Cultivation Stage, Core Stage of the Plane of Ascension, Aetheris Energy Cultivation Stage, Basic Stage, Level 40, EXP 0/33,000. What? Ryuk thought in shock as he looked at a particular area of the panel. 17. 17? I was 16 previously. Ryuk called out to the system, noticing something, and it replied. A total of 6 months has passed in Host slumber. Host clocked 17 while being in his slumber. The system stated, and Ryuk's lips opened, only to close back, and then open once more before finally spreading into a grin. 6 months already. Time truly has gone by. Ryuk stated to himself before once more taking his attention back to the stats. Stats. Strength 300. Agility 300. Mana 300. Endurance 300. Intelligence 296. Charisma 50. Luck null. Attribute points 0. My cultivation stage never increased while I was in slumber because I didn't cultivate at all, so that made sense. But still, my power level right now, it is far beyond the boundary of the ascension plane. Right now. Ryuk thought as his fist clenched in his palm, and he couldn't help but ask. Hey system, what is my power level right now? Host's power level right now can be compared to that of an initial stage of the plane of cataclysm. The system stated as Ryuk looked up at the stars in the sky, exhaling loudly to clear his troubled thoughts. I've really grown. I really have, he said to himself. Activate my Skills and Abilities tab, he ordered. Skills and Abilities. Ice Skill and Abilities. Note: Host possessed 2 skills, Frost Manipulation and Frost Veil. These skills have been merged together as one under the power of Aetheris. True Skill. Sovereign of Eternal Frost. Level 30. Description: The host becomes the embodiment of absolute cold, their body wreathed in crystalline frost and flowing ice, exuding an aura that freezes the very air around them. Host's presence alone is enough to turn the battlefield into a wasteland, where even time itself seems to slow down under the weight of endless winter. Eyes glowing with icy luminescence, Host's cold touch can shatter mountains themselves. Additional effects: all fire and heat-based attacks are nullified, collapsing into frozen stillness upon contact. The host's body regenerates through crystallization, reforming from ice if shattered. Domain skill available: Absolute Zero Dominion. This is a skill host can incorporate into his ice domain, causing all motion to cease, encasing enemies in eternal frost beyond the limits of physical reality. A skill to integrate into my domain? Ryuk wondered, looking at the skill before his eyes flashed. Good. I might have lost having 2 separate ice skills, but with this one skill, it is already thousands of times better than Frost Veil and the normal frost manipulation together. This is even better, Ryuk mused to himself before heading to his next skills. Nano Body Skills. Note: both Nano Umbral Reaper and Nano Reaper have been combined together under the effect of Aetheris. True Skill: Abyssal Nano Reaper. Level 30. True Skill: Abyssal Nano Reaper. Level 30. Description: the host has ascended beyond previous forms, becoming the ultimate fusion of nanotechnology and dark energy. The host transforms into a monstrous figure clad in an ever-shifting exoskeleton of living nanobots, constantly adapting, repairing, and evolving, developing countermeasures against any form of attack, whether physical or magical. This allows the host to unleash the full power of nano and dark energy, triggering an apocalyptic curse of abyssal energy that consumes everything with every attack. Additional effects: Abyssal Reaper Scythe, a colossal weapon formed from hyper-adaptive nanobots and raw abyssal energy. This scythe does not merely cut, it erases. Anything it touches is consumed, broken down to a molecular level, and converted into power, endlessly feeding the host's strength. Seems like I can't summon only the scythe anymore because it's now an additional effect. But still, The end result is something beyond my expectations. Ryuk mused, reading the description of the skill. If he unleashed it, only the devil knew what kind of hell he would be able to cause. But something else drew Ryuk's attention. The second new skill below it. True skill. Anunnaki Oblivion. Level 30. Description: the host summons a massive black sphere of hyperdense nanobots and abyssal energy. A living void that devours everything in its path. Anything caught within its soul, whether solid, energy, or even space itself, is rewritten into absolute nothingness. Singularity detonation: the host can also collapse the singularity itself at will, causing an ancient explosion that wipes everything in a massive radius, leaving behind only the void. Important warning: the skill does not differentiate between enemy and ally. If the host is caught within his own skill, he will be erased too. Hoo! A loud exhale left Ryuk's lips as he finished reading, his eyes widening in shock. His increased intelligence allowed him to comprehend the skill's true power instantly, and Ryuk knew at once. Anunnaki Oblivion. It is vastly superior to the absolute Nano Reaper, he mused to himself. And his reasoning was simple. The abyssal Nano Reaper relies on a physical form, with insane adaptability and a scythe-like attack. However, it still fights enemies. But what of Anunnaki Singularity? It doesn't fight, it pulls everything into itself and then erases it completely. No regeneration, no resistance, no escape. It rewrites everything caught within into a single fate known as absolute nothingness. To Ryuk, the abyssal Nano Reaper was an unstoppable warrior. Fast, powerful, and terrifying. But the Oblivion skill? It was a black hole of pure destruction. It didn't care how strong the enemy was. It simply erased them as if they were nothing. In short, the Anunnaki Singularity was the superior skill because it guaranteed destruction without even needing a battle. It was a truly terrifying ability. But it was also a double-edged sword. If Ryuk unleashed it, he had the same chance of being turned into nothingness as his own enemies. In short, unless he had a way to escape the pull of the attack, using it would only guarantee his own self-destruction, along with his foes. With a good comprehension of the technique and its dangers, Ryuk moved on to the next technique, located under a tab of its own. Aetheris Skills. Aegis of the Jade Dragon. Level 1. Description: drawing upon Aetheris, the energy of the will, the host bends the fabric of space, shaping it into an unbreakable shield. With a mere thought, they harden the air before them, turning it into solid jade. Additional effects: momentum nullification. Instead of just absorbing force, the shield halts it completely, preventing even the strongest attacks from pushing through. The description of the technique was incredibly simple, and Ryuk himself already understood it because he had instinctively used it during his skirmish with the dark-scaled Ryuk. Compared to his nano-based skills and frost abilities, it didn't seem like much. But Ryuk was very well aware of its potential. This was just like his Ice Apex energy. It could only unleash a mist at first, but it eventually turned him into an Ice Sovereign. He was excited, not for what the Aetheris skill was capable of now, but because of what it would become if it reached the higher levels like the rest of his skills. If level 1 can allow me to control space and harden it up, preventing any attack from truly reaching me, then what could level 30 do? But Ryuk was even more delighted for one reason. Finally, I've awakened a racial skill, Aegis of the Jade Dragon. That was his own bloodline skill, his own true power, not a borrowed ice power from Isha. Not a power from nanobot augmentation. Not an ability copied from an Anunnaki model. But his own power, flowing from the very blood within him. This is a true skill of mine. Finally, Ryuk mused to himself as he clenched his fist tightly. But then, he relaxed as words echoed in his thoughts. You okay, Ryuk? You've been silent for a long while now. Isha's worried voice echoed in his mind, pulling Ryuk out of his thoughts. While he could see the interface, Isha could not. And him staring at his fist and grinning like a madman after being asleep for 6 months would definitely make him look crazy. Deactivate system interface. I'm fine, Isha. What about you? It's been 6 months. How have you kept? Ryuk asked, turning his attention to Isha, who grinned. Didn't do much since I had to be around your unconscious body. But I did have quite some fun. Also, there's your ring, Isha said. Ryuk raised an eyebrow at the grinning frosty wyvern before taking his consciousness into the spatial ring, only for his jaw to drop. Hey Isha, there's only the cloth and tent left. What happened to the teleportation cards? And the defensive cards? Heck, even all the offensive cards are gone. Ryuk stared in shock as he looked at the now empty spatial ring, then turned back to the snickering Isha, who didn't even seem sorry at all. Ryuk could only shake his head. You know what? Just forget it, he muttered to himself. Hey, Ryuk, I've learned a thing or two about the beasts while you were asleep, Isha suddenly stated, drawing Ryuk's raised eyebrow. And what is that? Ryuk asked with curious eyes as Isha humphed. It's a big secret. It's not for free, Isha said to him as Ryuk looked at her with furrowed eyebrows before eventually accepting. Hey, system. Get me the best frost wyvern dish available. Shop. Pet dishes. Frost drab cube. Price. 9,000. Description. A high-quality dish, the best for frost wyverns. Possesses the capability to cancel out hunger in a beast for at least a year and also vastly stores within them ice apex energy, which can be used to further boost overall potential and cultivation speed of a frost wyvern. Buy it. Is the host sure they want to purchase the frost drab cube for 9,000 purchase points? That's a bit too much, no? The system asked, but Ryuk nodded his head. His reason for that was simple. He had been asleep for 6 months, and he had also ordered Isha not to devour any beast she killed. That meant Isha had essentially not eaten anything for almost 6 months. She might be a frost wyvern, a higher-grade beast, but he doubted she could go much longer without food. She could have easily killed one of the beasts and devoured it, satiating her hunger, but she couldn't, because of his order. What better way could he repay her loyalty for holding back her hunger than with the best dish in the world for a frost wyvern? Is this tempting enough? Ryuk asked as he stretched out his palm toward Isha. Right before her gaze, something materialized. A giant cube in the shape of a crab, various runic lines glowing across its surface, and frosty energy emanating from its body. Before Ryuk could even say anything more, Isha's tongue shot out, snatching the cube and forcing it down her maw instantly. A few seconds of chewing, strange gurgling noises, and Isha's eyes brightened with every bite before she finally finished it off, swallowing everything in one gulp. Ryuk's eyes widened as her belly suddenly swelled up as if she had become pregnant. Bleelig! A loud belch left her massive maw, raining down on Ryuk, who quickly waved his arm to clear the air. But surprisingly, it wasn't putrid. Now, that is the best thing I have ever tasted in my entire life. How do you even pull that off anyway? Bringing things out from naked air. Do you have a second spatial ring that you're hiding from me? Isha asked, her expression satisfied, her scales glowing with a brilliant blue light. Ryuk cleared his throat. I've fulfilled my part of the deal. Now yours. He reminded her. Isha clicked her tongue before sighing. Tsh, I should have asked for extra to call it a deal, she muttered. Ryuk snickered at her before she eventually conceded. Listen up, then, she said seriously, laying on her belly beside Ryuk, her claw pointing into the distance. There are 2 reasons why the beasts here are so strong. Firstly, the mana in the air, Isha stated. Ryuk furrowed his eyebrows, but only now did he see it clearly, his eyes flashing in shock. When he had first come here, he hadn't noticed much about the mana. It had seemed like the same quality as the one in the academy, and he hadn't thought it was special. But now, the concentration of mana had increased by almost 100-fold. Even more shocking was that Ryuk could now see every strand of apex energy in the air, and surprisingly, there were strange runic symbols within each one. Symbols that oozed an incredible amount of mana, locking it within the apex energy. He hadn't been able to see these symbols before, but now that he could, they seemed to increase the mana energy by hundreds of times. While there is this much mana in the air, we outsiders can't access it properly. I can sense that the mana is abundant, but when I tried cultivating, I barely absorbed much at all. It was almost like I wasn't cultivating to my full potential or not all of the mana was responding, Isha explained. With my very sharp intelligence, I could sense it, and after one day of a stupid monkey beast running across me, I used an offensive card and almost blew a finger of mine off. I got injured, and I noticed that for a split second. The mana in the air seemed to open its doors to me, allowing my cultivation to increase by almost double. For the next couple of days after that, those damn beasts wouldn't stop following me around, and I got injured again and again. And with every injury, the mana opened up more and more. Until now, I can easily access almost 70% of the mana here. In short, while we outsiders can't access the full power of the mana, if we get injured, the mana shifts into our wounded skin, attuning our internal body to it and, therefore, vastly increasing our cultivation speed. That's the first thing I learned. Throughout your slumber, you didn't increase your cultivation, and 6 months have already passed. I'm sure you must be feeling a bit of haste now. So if you want to maximize the mana here, you need to get a good beating, or you can just slice yourself open and let the mana get in. Whichever is safer. I think the former is the best, though. Hee. Always fun to watch, Isha said, cackling sinisterly as Ryuk clicked his tongue. You're getting more cunning and devious as the days go by, Isha, he thought before she continued. The second thing I've noticed about why the beasts here are so strong is artifacts. Ryuk raised an eyebrow. Yes, artifacts. Cultivation artifacts, to be exact. It's not just the mana that is abundant. Artifacts are also abundant here. There are special leaves, special stones in the ground that store mana within them. I named them mana stones. But I have tracked down the location of the 4 best mana artifacts, and guess what? They haven't even been fully used yet. If you get your hands on just 2 of those artifacts, your cultivation would shoot through the roof. Isha's words left Ryuk's eyes gleaming, greedy light flashing within. Tell me, Isha, where are they? Ryuk asked as Isha looked into the distance, then pointed her hands. These forests are shaped like a circle of some sort. The closer we are to the center, the weaker the beasts are, right now anyway. We're at the exact center of this area. And the farther away from the center, the stronger the beasts become. There is an edge to these circles, of course, which is where this forest ends. And at these edges, there are creatures who are by far the strongest of all. Just at the edges, Isha stated, pointing further into the distance, and Ryuk's eyes narrowed, recognizing a familiar sight. When he had arrived here, he had keenly sensed those terrifying beasts that resided at the plane of Cataclysm. They had made his spine grow cold. The truth is, I have noticed, the farther away one is from the center of this forest, the greater the concentration of mana, and the higher the grade of the artifacts. There are some little artifacts around here that can help your mana attunement and growth of potential, but they are not that effective. However, that changes the farther you move toward the edges of the forest. My hypothesis: the deeper we go toward the edges, the denser the mana, and the more artifacts we'll find. That makes sense as to why the most powerful beasts place their territory at the very edge of the forest. And by my guess, those places where the beasts take their territory and never intrude into others are most likely due to the fact that within their territory lies a powerful artifact whose power they are using to actively increase their strength. They don't leave their territory much, and their auras keep growing, meaning they are somehow increasing their cultivation even without actively devouring. I can only blame this on the existence of artifacts within where they cultivate. Isha read out her suspicions as Ryuk's head worked at full speed, devouring everything and processing it into something greater. So these beasts that are lords of the forest are lords because their territory has the best concentration of mana. And not only that, it also has special artifacts that help them boost their cultivation to such crazy levels without them even needing to leave. Perhaps that's why there's so much peace amongst them, unlike in this part of the forest where beasts fight for resources. They've all literally gotten the best resources suitable for them, and they probably don't even need to fight for them because each got what was best for them. In short, they're elements. If I can lay my hands on these resources, I can plant them into the pet world, improving the entire ecosystem, inducing different areas with different elements. Isha right now, she has just turned a part of the world into a frosty area, which is good for her resting place. But if I contract new beasts, they won't necessarily be frost-inclined like Isha. But if I can get my hands on these resources, I can find a way to terraform everything, making sure there is a spot for every beast. Ryuk thought deeper, his eyes flashing. And also, if I exchanged moves with these beasts who are truly at the initial phase of the stage of Cataclysm, it would be just enough for me to get injured and increase my mana attunement. I fight beasts at the plane of Cataclysm, get injured to increase my attunement, eventually kill them to gain EXP, and take their artifacts away to terraform my pet world. And once my attunement reaches 100%, I can finish my Apex realm, implant the absolute zero skill into it, and manifest my Apex domain, therefore reaching the plane of Dominion. He thought deeper, eyes flashing, before he slowly rose up. Wow, you've grown taller, Isha stated to Ryuka, looking up at him. Right now, Ryuka had truly grown. From his already tall height of 1.9 meters, he now stood at exactly 2 meters in pure height, his snow-white hair furling around his head, with well-proportioned muscles and a more matured yet deadly handsome face. It seemed the Nabity evolution didn't just increase his power. It increased his charm too. I have made up my mind, Isha, Ryuk stated as the bones on his body crackled, sounding like thunder and echoing with ferocity. That sent a slight shiver through Isha, who quickly straightened up as Ryuk's calm aura began glowing into the sky, seemingly changing from a small flickering flame of a candlelight in a storm to a billowing, erupting lava. We will pay a warm visit to every single one of these beasts at the plane of Cataclysm and politely ask for their artifacts. We, of course, can't afford to be denied, having approached them with such noble intentions. To be denied would be to be slapped right in the face by them, which is not something very warmly accepted. Therefore, if they refuse to give up their artifacts, we will have no choice but to use force to seize them. And if they resist, then we will bring an end to them, Ryuka stated, his chest sticking out in a righteous form as Isha snickered. Hee, you greedy bastard. You could just say you want their artifacts and want to steal them. Why sugarcoat it so much? Isha said, rolling on her eyes before rolling on her back, her huge stomach bubbling, facing up at the sky, and another belch left her lips. It seemed she had only just started digesting the drab cube and was still absorbing it. Also, you're at the core stage of the plane of ascension. How do you plan on taking on beasts at the initial plane of Cataclysm? You won't even reach their territory before fearsome beasts end you before you even get there. I told you of territory, didn't I? Isha asked, scratching her belly with her withdrawn claws. But her eyes widened in shock when she felt Ryuk grab onto one of her legs and then, R.I.P. The air parted like a hot knife through butter as Isha felt the world rapidly zip by with horrifying speed, numbing her from shock. When her head finally touched the clouds in the sky, she saw Ryuk looking up at her from below with an interested smile on his face. What? What the hell? Hey, Ryuk. I can't glide this high. Isha screamed in horror as she looked down beneath her feet, seeing the entire forest reduced to nothing but a tiny dot from such an unimaginable height. Even her wings failed her, as the air pressure was nothing she could handle. She plummeted from the sky, but barely fell for 20 meters before. Bam! Her huge, wobbling stomach landed on something hard in the air, causing a loud gulp to escape her lips. She unconsciously stared down, her spine tingling as she realized she was still incredibly far from the forest floor. How? I'm hovering in the air. I can fly now? Isha muttered in surprise, but as she looked at her wings, she found them tucked in her arms. Instead, she saw a foot just beside her. Now tell me, Isha, which of these Cataclysm beasts is the strongest? Ryuk asked, looking down beneath his feet. Isha turned her shocked gaze to him but narrowed her eyes as she extended her claw and tapped beneath her feet. Clank! Clank! Glass? she asked before staring at Ryuk in surprise. Now, she finally had an explanation for why she and Ryuk could stand in the sky. The ground beneath them had somehow turned to glass. She asked him about it, but he remained silent, his predator-like gaze fixed on the beasts below. Her spine went cold. "Don't tell me, Ryuk, that you're really serious about taking on the Cataclysm beasts. Just to remind you, I am only a grade B upper-tier beast, which you might know as the peak stage of the Plane of Dominion. But these beasts, they're all at grade A, the initial stage of the Plane of Cataclysm. There is no way we're surviving this," Isha stated firmly. But Ryuk only chuckled. "Do you not trust me, Isha?" he asked, his runic blue eyes locking onto hers. She was about to retort, but her maw remained open in the air, words failing to come out. Slowly, she rose up properly, and in the next second, Ryite, Ryite, two slit-like lines appeared on Isha's forehead as gleaming blue horns, pulsating with intense frost energy, emerged from her head. Her wings and scales crystallized, growing razor-sharp like blades, while her claws elongated close to 1/2 meter in length. A fearsome ice aura spilled out from Isha, her runic eyes flashing dangerously. An incredible beastly presence surged outward, causing a thump in Ryuk's heart. "Isha, she's grown stronger," Ryuk realized in astonishment. "She was previously at the initial Plane of Dominion when I had entered slumber, but now, she's at the peak of the stage. No, her power feels even stronger than that. Right now, Isha should be at a pseudo-cataclysm stage, just one step below grade A beasts." Isha turned her beastly blue gaze toward him. "All of the cataclysm beasts are nearly equal in strength. It's the only reason they maintain their peace. You decide which one we take on first," she said. Ryuk stared at her, still slightly surprised. He had thought he would need to reveal his power to ease Isha's fears, but her instant change had more or less stunned him, and he couldn't help but feel something warm rising in his heart. A feeling born from being trusted without needing to prove himself. What Isha had demonstrated just now was something humans often referred to as blind faith. Something exceedingly rare in this devil-forsaken world. "Good, my Isha. Really good," Ryuk said, patting her forehead before shifting his serious gaze downward. "We take on the lava crocodile first," he declared. In the next instant, the glass beneath Ryuk's feet shattered into pieces as he and Isha soared downward at blinding speed. Their trajectory visibly shifted toward the edge of the forest, where Ryuk hardened the surrounding space, turning it to a slide to create a direct path above a gigantic mountain. Atop that mountain, an equally gigantic, monstrous crocodilian creature lay in deep slumber, waves of intense heat oozing from its nose and lips. But the moment it sensed two presences approaching, about 100 meters above, its massive eyes snapped open, only to be met with an enormous pillar of frost blasting down toward its head. A powerful roar erupted from the crocodile's maw, the mountain beneath it slightly crumbling into shards as an unshakable aura of destruction exploded outward from its body. Lava spewed violently from the cracks beneath the mountain as the beast opened its gigantic mouth, a molten lava sphere surging forth like an erupting volcano. The moment the sphere left its mouth, a horrific explosion tore through the sky, sending a powerful shockwave ripping through half of the forest. Frost and lava clashed, the very space itself burning and freezing simultaneously, creating a loud sizzling noise as thick smoke covered the entire area. But then, a snow-white hand, clenched into a fist and covered in runic tattoos, through the heavy smoke, and smashed directly into the lava crocodile's skull. The beast crashed downward, completely obliterating what little remained of the mountain. The impact left behind a massive 10-meter deep crater in the earth. "Nice obstruction," Ryuk praised Isha as he descended from the air, hardening the atmosphere into a staircase to gently walk downward. Isha followed behind him. Grulul, an insane, enraged growl rang out from the darkness of the crater. A massive claw suddenly latched onto the edge of the abyss, and the lava crocodile slowly rose back into the air. Its monstrous gaze locked onto Ryuk and Isha, and runic red lines began glowing all over its skin, lava visibly swirling beneath its armored hide. A wild aura of fury erupted, the temperature skyrocketing thousands of degrees, burning even the surrounding space. An unbelievable, murderous aura burst forth from the lava crocodile, shaking the entire forest area. My first battle with a grade A mutant beast. Now this will be very interesting. Are you a crocodile or a lava mountain? Ryuk's amused voice rang through the air as he stepped down to the ground, 20 meters before the crocodile, which had now transformed into a living lava mountain. Every scale on the creature gleamed with the rich lines of lava that coursed through its body, causing molten streams to spill over its form, turning it into an oozing, fiery colossus. Even its eyes dripped with searing lava, while the ground beneath it blackened and cracked, sizzling into a molten ruin with every passing second. Its claws, infused with the burning lava, scraped against the scorched ground as it crawled forward, its predatory gaze locked onto Isha and Ryuk, eyes filled with a cunning, serpentine glint. You, foolish. You, D. The growl that followed carried an immense pressure, the strongest Ryuk had ever experienced. The crocodile cackled with an eerie, sinister light in its eyes, and for a moment, Ryuk stood there in surprise. But only for a moment. With his speed, he had time to process the absurdity of the situation, and then, he threw his head back and laughed like a madman. Never in my life would I have believed I'd live long enough to see a talking crocodile. This is truly eye-opening. The crocodile's expression darkened, its molten form radiating pure rage. Then, in an instant, a powerful growl tore through the air as the beast lunged forward, its speed utterly monstrous. Despite its towering height of 10 meters, which made Ryuk seem like nothing more than a pebble before it, the creature moved with terrifying swiftness. In just 3 steps, it had almost reached him. Yet Ryuk didn't move. Instead, his grin widened as he called out, "Activate King's Aura." Boom, boom, boom. A powerful blue aura erupted from Ryuk's body, his white cloth flapping wildly due to the surge of energy. At the same time, Isha's eyes flashed a deep blue, her body trembling as an overwhelming force coursed through her veins, amplifying her primal strength. King's Aura has been activated. Host's pet's power has increased by 50%. The air trembled violently as the crocodile's massive jaws crashed downward, lava pouring toward Ryuk and Isha like an apocalyptic downpour. The heat grew unbearable, the weight of its power pressing down on everything in its path. But before the attack could land, a frozen claw slammed into the crocodile's maw with immense force, sending the molten beast hurtling to the side, tumbling across the scorched land before skidding to a stop. Shock flickered in its eyes, but it had no time to dwell on it. The instant it turned, it was met with another devastating claw strike, this one just as powerful as its own. Boom! The force of impact tore through the battlefield. Claws clashed again and again, sending shockwaves rippling through the air. Isha and the lava crocodile wrestled fiercely, their massive forms flattening the trees around them. The ground beneath their feet crumbled into ruin, devoured by the clashing forces of ice and fire. Ryuk observed the battle from a distance, while walking forward at a calm pace, his sharp eyes analyzing every movement. With King's Aura activated, Isha, whose true strength could be compared to that of a pseudo-cataclysm beast, is now fully at the cataclysm stage, the exact same level of power as the lava crocodile. Yet, despite that power, Isha is still lacking something. Ryuk furrowed his brows as he watched the battlefield. Neither Isha nor the crocodile backed down, both locked in a deadly stalemate with their claws. But suddenly, the crocodile shifted its weight, subtly positioning itself lower to the ground. Isha unconsciously fell towards it from above, its instincts screaming at it, but it was too late. Boom! The crocodile's chest split open like a fissure, and from within, a pillar of scorching lava exploded forth, slamming into Isha's body. The force lifted her into the air, sending her tumbling across the battlefield, crashing through trees and skidding through scorched earth until she finally came to a stop. As she struggled to her feet, pain seared through her body. She glanced at her chest, finding a patch of burned flesh, a deep, agonizing wound that sent waves of torment through her nerves. Her eyes darkened. Then, she opened her maw. Boom! A pillar of frost burst forth, racing toward the lava crocodile at devastating speed. But the creature was no fool. It leapt away, dodging the attack effortlessly as its burning claws slashed forward. Tearing through the trees and ground in its path, a Sit rapidly flashed forwards towards Isha with ferocity. Ryuk, still walking forward, sighed lightly. Isha lacks experience. Experience in battle and ferocity. A towering tree, at least 40 meters tall, suddenly came crashing toward him. But he didn't even look, and in the next instant, an ice sword materialized out of thin air and flashed past. R.I.P. The massive tree was split in two, its sides slamming behind him and continuing into the distant. Ryuk walked forward, his attention never for once leaving Isha's battle. Isha may have displayed some moments of ferocity in her previous battles, but I can sense it. Compared to these beasts, who have lived in the wild their entire lives, she still has much to learn. These creatures had been raised in an environment where they could be hunted at any moment. Their predatory instincts had been sharpened through countless life-or-death encounters, their intelligence honed by survival. For the lava crocodile, there was no doubt it had fought thousands of battles, had triumphed over countless foes, refining its power through sheer bloodshed. Compared to Isha, who is still in the early stages of mastering her predatory abilities, this crocodile was something else entirely, a trueborn killer of the wild. And that is something Isha cannot yet compete with. As if proving Ryuk's thoughts, the lava crocodile effortlessly dodged Isha's next barrage of ice pillars, its claws slashing forward. Isha met the strike with her own. But the moment their claws connected, boom! A surge of lava erupted from the crocodile's claws, sending Isha flying backward. She crashed through the battlefield, slamming into another tree. And before she could recover, boom! Another blast of lava roared toward her. She opened her maw, unleashing a powerful frost breath in response. But her actions were rushed, reducing the power of her attack. This time, the lava devoured the ice completely, and before Isha could react, the searing flames slammed into her, sending her flying even farther into the distance. Error! A painful roar left Isha's lips as the powerful wave of lava slammed into her face, sending a chilling wave of pain through her entire being. Her frost energy rapidly covered her face, cooling down the heat, but when she opened her eyes, what awaited her was the sight of gigantic lava-filled claws lashing onto her face, sending her flying 50 meters into the sky. And then, the air cracked as a gigantic lava-infused tail arced through the sky, striking straight into Isha. One of her wings barely managed to withstand the impact, but the searing heat burned through its flesh, leaving behind deep, charred wounds. Her back slammed into the ground, sending her crashing toward the very place they had both come from. Groaning, Isha adjusted herself to a stop, breathing raggedly. As she opened her eyes, she found Ryuk standing before her, his hand raised toward her face, where a pill lay curled in his palm. He opened her maw and tossed the pill into her mouth before stepping backward. A deep flame spread through Isha's lungs, searing her very core as the pill disintegrated inside her. A powerful blue light flashed in her eyes, and in the next instant, a roar, even more powerful than the one she had unleashed before, erupted from her throat as Isha rose back to her feet. The wing that had been burned instantly regenerated, all of her charred wounds closing up. Her skin cracked apart, revealing pure, pristine scales beneath. And then, the air exploded with force as Isha shot forward, hurtling toward the lava crocodile. A crystalline ice rock formed in her fingers, and in an instant, she hurled it toward the beast. The projectile blasted forward, but the creature responded with a burning wave of lava, reducing the ice to nothing before the two clashed once more. Claw met claw. Fangs sank into flesh. The impact sent debris flying through the air as the two beasts separated for only a moment, only to charge toward each other again with even more ferocity. This is what Isha needs. Ryuk muttered to himself as he watched her fighting style shift, her movements adapting. She had begun crafting sharp, crystalline ice shards with precision, controlling them with intelligence, turning the battlefield into a frozen war zone. More ferocity. Right now, she's a cub to it. She holds too much power, but not much experience. This is never the right way. It is always better to be more experienced first. If Isha's power keeps growing, but her ferocity lags behind, or worse, if it's uncontrolled, she will become nothing more than another mindless beast, overflowing with power but lacking any true control. I wasn't raised like that by Uncle Bob. He taught me to get used to killing barehand before giving me a knife. Experience must precede power, not the other way around or the absolute lack of it. His thoughts trailed off as, once more, Isha's gigantic body was sent tumbling. This time, one of her claws had been ripped from her body, and two of her wings were torn apart. But then, Ryuk stretched out his hand, her maw opening once again as he tossed another healing pill toward her. The moment it entered her mouth, her injuries closed up, her body regenerating. And with renewed strength, she lunged forward toward the crocodile once more, the battle resuming, this time with even more ferocity. Become ferocious, Isha. Listen to your primal desires. Watch how the true beasts of the wild fight. Learn their ferocity, their cunning, their battle strategy. And most importantly, learn how they apply this ferocity to their battles and prevail. The ground cracked apart as Isha was once again sent flying, crashing back toward Ryuk, this time looking even more battered than before. Yet, just like before, Ryuk tossed a pill into her mouth, sending her running back toward the lava crocodile. The beast, too, was covered in injuries. Scorch marks, frost-bitten wounds, and deep gashes marred its form, its breath growing heavier. But its eyes burned with something else. Fierceness. A monstrous will. It refused to fall. The air burned hotter. A grin spread across the beast's maw. Sparks crackled around its form as it snarled toward Isha, exhaling steam through its nostrils. Ryuk's eyes flashed in amazement. Never have I seen an enemy so valiant. Never have I seen one of my enemies get knocked down, only to rise back up, again and again, without any hope of winning, yet still standing. The lava crocodile lunged once more, but its body betrayed it. Its ferocity remained, but its strength was gone. Collapsed onto the ground, breathing hard. When it opened its eyes again, it did not find Isha before it. Instead, a small, frail-looking creature stood before it, hands in his pockets, gazing down. Brumo! Pure lava suddenly erupted from the crocodile's form, surging toward Ryuk in one last desperate attack. The beast's eyes flashed with a sinister light. Got you, bastard! But then, the lava cleared. Ryuk stood there, completely untouched. The molten rock dripped from his body, but somehow never touched it, and his expression did not change. It was as if he had anticipated the strike before it even happened. The crocodile tried to move again, tried to kill the one responsible for its downfall. But its body would not listen. Slowly, Ryuk stretched out his hand, his palm pressing gently against the beast's face. The crocodile flinched. A sensation unlike any other spread through its form. Coldness. The one thing it hated most in this world. And yet, this coldness did not bring pain. This coldness brought peace. You fought valiantly, Croc, Ryuk whispered. Rest now. The gentle words filled the battlefield with an eerie stillness. A peace so profound, so complete, felt like a baby being lulled to sleep. And, finally, the crocodile gave in. Under Ryuk's unwavering will, it accepted its end. Frost spread from Ryuk's palm, covering the beast's body. Its eyes, once filled with rage, softened. Relief flickered within them as its consciousness faded into darkness. And then, shat titir, like an ice sculpture, the beast's body shattered into countless fragments, scattering across the ground before disintegrating into nothing but ashes. Congratulations! Host has defeated a Grade A beast. Total EXP. Plus 20,000. Total EXP. 20,000/33,000. The system notification flashed before Ryuk's gaze as he nodded before wishing for the panel to disappear. A new pill appeared in his hands, which he threw to Isha. She caught it with her maw and swallowed it with a gulp, her injuries rapidly fading away. If I remember correctly, you were previously scared to the bone to fight a Grade A beast just a few hours ago, and now you've just defeated one. Tell me, how do you feel, Isha? Ryuk called out as he walked toward her. Isha looked at the dispersing ashes of the lava crocodile before glancing down at her claws, a bizarre look in her eyes. Had she been scared of fighting the beast? Absolutely. She had been terrified. But she also remembered the promise she had made to Ryuk, the promise to stay by his side until the end of it all. That was why she had fought without thinking twice. Of course, she had expected her own defeat, leaving them with no choice but to run away again. But now, she stood there, all her injuries healed, while the mighty lava crocodile, once a source of fear, had been reduced to nothing but drifting ashes. Somehow, she had emerged victorious. Remember, Isha? Ryuk's voice rang out as Isha raised her head, finding him mere centimeters from her face, his hand gently patting her head. I would never ask you to do something that would kill you. If I decide to take a path, you can trust me. Nothing will go wrong, Ryuk whispered. Isha closed her eyes in silence, feeling his warmth, his trust stealing her resolve. Then, Ryuk suddenly parted from her, crouching toward the ground. Boom! Ryuk's hand dug deep into the earth as he pulled on something, veins bulging all over his arm. Umbali. The ground rumbled crazily as Isha's eyes narrowed, watching Ryuk struggle with whatever he was pulling out. For nearly a full minute, the ground cracked, splitting into another deep crevice before Ryuk finally yanked the object free. In the next instant, he grabbed Isha and instantly zoomed into the sky. A split second later, a powerful eruption of lava burst into the air, sending splashes of molten lava in all directions. Ryuk barely dodged, soaring higher as the raging inferno swallowed everything below. The intense lava surge continued for a long while, its scorching heat reducing the ground to ashes, before it finally died down. Ryuk and Isha settled high above, looking down at the world below. A land now turned into a lava-infested wasteland. But then, Isha sensed a powerful flame aura. She slowly turned her gaze to Ryuk's hand, watching as it burned red-hot, only for powerful steam to release. Again, the flames scorched his hand, only for the steam to emanate once more. It was an endless cycle of burning and cooling. Ryuk looked at the gemstone in his hand just as a notification appeared. Congratulations! Host has found an A-grade artifact, Flame Gem. Description: the Flame Gem is an important cultivation tool, even for A-grade beasts. It holds nature's accumulated flame energy over countless years, making any place it is placed into a cultivation paradise for flame users. It also possesses the functionality to absorb even more flame apex energy from the air, ensuring it never extinguishes itself. The system analyzed as Ryuk grinned wildly. Just what I wanted, he mused. With that, the gem disappeared from his hand, stored away safely in his storage ring. Come, Isha. Let's go to the second beast, Ryuk stated. The glass beneath him faded away as he and Isha soared toward another direction. Their destination: a region filled with forests as black as pitch, completely corroded. A sinister energy filtered through the air, its eerie green hue lingering like poison. The terrain in this part of the forest was disturbingly chilling. As Ryuk advanced, a new notification appeared. Warning: high levels of poison detected in the air. Excessive inhalation may cause host to absorb the airborne toxins, weakening battle capabilities and inducing rapid fatigue. Host must exercise caution. The system's warning flashed across his vision, making Ryuk's brows furrow. Still, he continued onward, Isha following by his side. After nearly 3 hours of walking, they finally arrived at their destination. A massive cave lay before them, its body lined with strange, dark runic inscriptions that pulsed with a powerful poisonous aura. What a weird cave, Ryuk mused to himself, observing the ominous runes across the entrance. But then, Rat-tali, Rattle,
Isis.
a bizarre hiss rang out, followed by the sound of shifting stones. 2 eerie eyes slowly opened from within the cave's darkness. Then it emerged, at first only a head, one that would have no problem containing 200 Ryuks. Then, the rest of its massive body slithered forth, its abyssal, pitch-black eyes locking onto Ryuk and Isha as it bared its enormous maw. 2 fangs gleamed, dark saliva dripping from their tips. Wherever the venom touched the ground, a sizzling sound erupted as the terrain melted away, leaving behind a bottomless hole. Ryuk and Isha stared at the effect, witnessing how effortlessly the poison corroded the earth itself. It was none other than the poison Rattleconda, the very beast they had encountered on their first day here, the same one that had forced them to run for their lives. Grulu Sualwal. A low, furious growl rumbled from Isha's throat. Of course, she remembered it. How could she ever forget? This was the first thing that had made her run away in sheer embarrassment. Now, however, a budding anger filled her senses, her growl intensifying. Warning! Host has encountered a creature classified as an upper-tier Grade A beast. The Poison Rattleconda. Analysis complete. This creature possesses the ability to bring an end to Host. Host must exercise extreme caution. The system's warning blared. Ryuk's eyes flashed. He whispered, "Activate King's aura." Scree. Immediately, the Rattleconda rushed forward with incredible speed. Appearing before Ryuk and Isha, the second Ryuk activated King's aura, a powerful blue aura that exploded out of both him and Isha. But the Rattleconda was so fast that before Isha could blink, its thorny tail was merely inches away from slicing straight through her head, causing her to stand paralyzed in shock. If that tail attack met its head, it would no doubt slice it in 2 immediately, killing it in one swift stroke. Death! Death! The words resonated in Isha's head, further terrifying it. Unable to move as it stood there, waiting for its death. But then, splat! Blood splashed out, deep red in color, staining Isha's face as her eyes widened in shock. In front of its head, on the path of the deadly claw, was none other than Ryuk's hand, which was instantly severed off his body by the tail. But the explosion of force was enough to send Isha flying away from where it stood, just as the tail smacked into the ground, shattering it into pieces. In the wake of the attack, the ground sizzled once more. Bubbling as poison filled the ground, sizzling violently. Bomb! 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 Ryuk tumbled on the ground for a long while, his back skidding across the rough terrain, only for a figure to appear behind him, stopping his motion with its scaled yet soft body. "Oh, Isha, you know it's not safe to lose concentration in the middle of a battle, right?" Ryuk asked as he slid down from Isha's body, now missing an arm that dripped with blood. Isha's eyes glowed with worry, but Ryuk only smirked as he looked into the distance. "Prepare yourself, Isha. Here it comes," Ryuk warned. The twisted trees in the serpent's path suddenly trembled, and immediately, spray. What came out was a powerful spray of corrosive, dark saliva. Isha's lips parted in shock as it blasted out a wave of powerful ice, but it watched in horror as its ice was eroded into nothing, burned straight through, and the attack continued in their direction. "Not so fast." Ryuk grinned, and with a simple will, the space around him instantly hardened. All of the venomous spray stopped in midair, all of it frozen in place. But then, whyup! A loud whipping sound rang out as the gigantic phantom of a 1,000-meter-long tail came smashing down toward Isha and Ryuk. Too slow, Ryuk thought, trying to take a sidestep and dodge away, but his body froze. Something had locked onto him, restricting his movement, forcing him to face the attack head-on. Looking beneath him, Ryuk found the floor covered in glowing saliva, and the air around him had turned completely pitch black, along with the sky being severed by a dark, ominous wall. It activated a domain, and even used a powerful skill so fast. It's been less than 2 seconds. Ryuk thought in shock as he watched the enormous phantom tail loom toward him. He turned his head to Isha, who looked at him, frozen in fear. "Show me, Isha. Show me the power of a frost wyvern." Isha turned its head back to the tail, shock clouding its face, along with horror. But then, a powerful roar left her lips, filled with pure anger. She had cowered in fear the last time she saw this devil-forsaken low-bloodline beast, and now she was cowering again? Isha's horns flared with a powerful blue light, ancient rune-like inscriptions gradually appearing all over its body. A roar twice as powerful boomed out once more from her lips, and then the air completely transformed into a world of snow as a wave of powerful ice burst out from Isha's body, flowing across the battlefield like a tsunami. Hundreds and hundreds of ice spikes shot out from the ground, floating behind Isha with incredible cold energy. And then, boom-a-moom, boom-a-moom, boom-a-moom. Shockwaves rippled across the area as thousands of crystalline ice shards instantly soared toward the falling phantom of the tail. An apocalyptic explosion raged through the dark domain, a result of thousands of crystallized ice spikes rippling with incredible frost energy, clashing head-on against a skill further augmented by a domain. Immediately, a powerful shockwave rippled out as the attacks canceled each other out, exploding straight into the faces of Ryuk and Isha, sending them flying backward. But the Rattleconda itself was not without its damage, as it too was sent flying back. Yet instantly, it slipped away into the darkness of the void. Ryuk, who was rolling away on the poison-covered ground, suddenly came to a screeching stop. He looked into the distance, his body still tense when he felt the beast's aura fade away. The battlefield was eerily silent. Isha flashed its wary eyes around, scanning for the beast. But then, a surprised sound escaped Ryuk's lips as he looked beneath his feet. Then, Cleowas. A powerful snap rang out as a gigantic maw tore out from beneath Ryuk, swallowing him instantly. Viewerist. Blood burst out of Ryuk's lips as he felt the corrosive fangs tighten around his waist. He was lifted like a leaf in the air, sending a splash of blood rippling through the entire domain. And then, boom! Half of his body was severed, his legs falling into the corrosive maw of the Rattleconda, which swallowed them instantly. Ryuk's upper body was sent flying into a corner of the dark domain, dropping into the poison-covered ground and sinking into it. Ryuk! Ryuk! Isha's voice rang out in Ryuk's mind, but no reply came. Isha looked in shock at the stilling ripples where Ryuk's body had sunk, sizzling in the poison. A flash of horror crossed its gaze. Ryuk! Ryuk is dead. The thought echoed in Isha's head. And in the next instant, crimson slits opened in Isha's eyes as an incredible frost energy, radiating with a faint crimson hue, began burning around its body like flames. Slowly, it raised its now emotionless gaze toward the Rattleconda, which slowly slithered forward with the most sinister expression, turning its back against Ryuk, who it had defeated. Roar! A guttural roar escaped Isha's lips as it was about to burst forward, when suddenly, it froze. It felt a dark light flash through the world, so dark that the entire battlefield seemed to lose all color for a split second. And then, ba-ong! The head of the Rattleconda suddenly flashed toward its face. Instinctively, Isha smashed its claw outward, blasting the head to the side. Its eyes widened in shock as it witnessed the severed lower half of the snake slowly fall to the ground with a dull thump. What happened? Be warned, Isha. The growling, hellish voice resounded as Isha turned her head behind the snake's corpse, finding a figure crouched on the ground. A figure clad in a weird, shimmering cloak of dark energy with strange scales that rapidly shifted and twisted. A ginormous scythe slowly melded back into the robe, disappearing as the figure rose. It was none other than Ryuk, who reappeared once again in his previous image, his ripped-out arms and legs having fully regenerated. 1 second of lost concentration, 1 second of the wrong thought, and your fate would not be much different from the Rattleconda lying dead beneath your feet, Ryuk stated seriously. Summoning a new set of clothes from his spatial ring, he donned them, replacing the ones that had been torn off. Isha looked at the severed upper body of the Rattleconda, a cautious flash in her eyes. She understood why the beast had met its end, because, just like the beast, she had also misjudged the situation. She had thought Ryuk was dead, his upper body ripped apart, his remains falling into the poisonous wave below. This reassurance of his death had made the Rattleconda fully focus on her, assuming Ryuk was no longer a threat. It had begun switching off its domain, diverting its attention to facing Isha, whom it considered the lesser danger. For just a split second its focus shifted, from killing Ryuk to engaging Isha, and deactivating its domain. That single mistake had given Ryuk the perfect opportunity to strike, and he never let such a chance slip. Many times you zoned out during the battle, Ryuk said, walking toward her. Isha stared down at her feet, feeling a bit of shame, only for Ryuk to lift her chin gently. It is absolutely okay to feel fear, Isha. The feeling of fear itself is normal. It's not something that can truly be controlled, but it's also not important. What must be focused on is how you react to that fear. Your reaction is everything. You can feel fear and still charge forward into battle, or you can feel fear and freeze up, waiting for death to encroach upon you. So what truly matters is how you respond to fear. I want you to act courageously, either run away or fight back. Don't let it paralyze you. Ryuk's voice trailed off as Isha nodded. Good. Now come. Let's check what this Rattleconda was hiding in its cave, Ryuk stated as both walked forward toward the pitch-dark cave. The instant Ryuk stepped inside, he was surprised to sense a strange energy mixed with the poisonous aura lingering in the air. Wait, is this? He murmured under his breath. Void energy. The system completed his thoughts as Ryuk cautiously advanced, Isha following closely behind. During his battle with the Rattleconda, Ryuk had never sensed even the slightest trace of void energy in any of its attacks. Yet its cave was brimming with it. Why? Dark runic lines along the cave walls provided faint illumination for both Ryuk and Isha. Soon, they reached the end of the cave, where two objects lay in wait. The most eye-catching was a blood-red altar filled with glowing crimson runes. And the other, what is that? Ryuk asked in shock, staring at the object before him. A strange, floating entity, surrounded by thick, binding chains. It was egg-shaped, covered in various glowing runic lines. From its body, an intense surge of void energy rolled outward, humming faintly as if alive. Return to the pet world, Isha, Ryuk commanded. In an instant, Isha faded into thin air, leaving only Ryuk as he stepped forward. Arriving at the altar, his gaze shifted to a single grimoire-like book resting atop it. Its title was especially eye-catching, Life Replacement Art. Looking from the book to the chained, humming egg, his eyes widened as his mind quickly pieced everything together. Don't tell me. Yes, host. It seems the Rattleconda was trying to gain a new life, and it planned to do that, using its own egg? Correction, host. This egg does not belong to the Rattleconda. Ryuk's brows furrowed. But the egg is in the Rattleconda's cave. How could it not be its own? It's simple. The Rattleconda's elemental affinity is purely poison energy. Not a single trace of void or shadow energy was ever sensed from it. But this egg, right before host, is radiating an immense amount of void energy, barely being contained by these void chains. If the egg was truly the Rattleconda's offspring, it would at least have some traces of poison energy. But it doesn't. Clearly, this egg does not belong to the Rattleconda. It more likely belongs to another beast. But that's insane. Why would the Rattleconda, an apex predator at the mid-stage of the Cataclysm Plane, try to start a new life all over again. Its power is already enough to be a lord in this first area. Why would it discard everything and start from scratch? Unless, Ryuk muttered, his mind forming a theory. Unless its current body had reached the peak of its evolutionary stage, and it wanted to replace itself with this egg. A fresh start, hoping to break through to an even higher cultivation realm in its next life. He turned his gaze deeper into the cave. Various artifacts, pulsing with void energy, lined the area. That is most likely true, host. With these artifacts, any beast with void energy could rise rapidly in power. And being this strong, other beasts would steer clear away from its cave, giving it just enough time to grow in strength, safely hidden in its cave after taking over the egg's body. This shows this Rattleconda is a very intelligent beast with greater plans, which may include subduing other beasts with its new body and strength, and also bold enough to go through all the danger of that. Unfortunately for it, it met with host, ending its grand rebirth plan. The system stated as Ryuk's eyes flashed. He dragged his gaze to the dragon egg in the room, and everything finally came to a clear understanding in his mind. Yet, he couldn't help but turn to look at the void egg. "Just what are you?" he asked, his hands stretching out and grabbing at the chains. But then, boom! A blast of force rang out as he was instantly sent flying backward, slamming into the altar behind him and shattering into pieces before smashing into the cave wall. Crackly, crackle. The sound of lightning crackling rang through the cave, sending Ryuk's body spasming from shock. A wild, dark surge of energy surrounded his form, continuously shocking him. But Ryuk snarled as his form instantly morphed, transforming into a veiled individual shrouded in shimmering dark energy, with veins of ever-changing nanobots coursing beneath his skin. His hand grabbed at the chain once more, but the moment he did, a violent shock traveled all along its length. Yet, instantly the nanobots adapted, absorbing the crackling electricity, redirecting it through Ryuk's veil, and passing it into his other arm. Instantly, both of Ryuk's arms grasped the chain. Dark lightning zapped powerfully around the room, slithering and flashing as the energy surged. Ryuk forcefully pulled on the chains, veins bulging beneath his arms, and then, crack! Cracks began spreading through the entire chain, and then, shatter! Clank! 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 They broke. The pieces scattered onto the ground, and the egg, finally freed, soared downward, but never reached the ground. A snowy white hand grabbed it from beneath. Physical scan of the egg finally completed. Creature type of the egg cannot be scanned. Health factor of the egg, 3%. Warning, host. The life in this egg has only a few more hours before being fully eliminated and erased. Conditions are worsening, the system stated as Ryuk looked at the egg, his eyes flashing with various thoughts. One thing was certain, he had no idea what the egg was. What type of creature lay within it? It could be an untalented mutated beast, but he doubted that. If the Rattleconda wanted new life to grow its power, then it had to ensure that this egg had the potential to go beyond its own current limits, at the very least. But there was also the possibility that the egg's consciousness had already been damaged by the Rattleconda's sinister plan, judging from its 100% health factor plummeting to a mere 3%. This would no doubt affect the creature within, since its life was nearly snuffed out. The egg before him was no longer a worthy investment, judging by its rapid decline toward death. Should he just leave it alone and let fate take its course, or... No, I'll force a good fate for it, Ryuk thought, stealing his mind as he asked. Hey system, got any way to help? Yes host. Buying a pet incubator would help. Shop. Pet incubator. A one-time system item that facilitates the quick maturing of eggs and enhances their health factor. Price: 13,000 purchase points. Total purchase points possessed by host: 13,000, the system stated, and Ryuk bit his lip. These are my remaining points. If I use all of this, I won't be able to buy healing pills for Isha's battle. Is it really worth it? He mused to himself. But with a sigh, he ordered, Buy it. Congratulations. Host has bought an ice incubator. The object has been placed within host's pet world. The system stated as Ryuk paused, his consciousness dipping into his pet world. Inside, he found Isha, who was poking at a large gem-like cube, big enough to contain a large egg. Isha raised an eyebrow as he spotted Ryuk holding the egg in his hands. I don't know what this egg is, Isha, but it's close to dying. I'm putting it in this incubator, even if the chances of its survival aren't very good. Hopefully it survives. Ryuk's voice was solemn as he walked toward the incubator. The moment he approached, the incubator opened immediately. With one last look at the egg, Ryuk gently placed it inside. The incubator shut tight, a strange undulating ripple forming along the runic lines that appeared upon placement. I've done all I can to help, little egg. Whether you survive or not, I'm afraid it's up to you now. Ryuk mused, and his consciousness faded away from the pet world, returning him back to the cave. With that settled, Ryuk's greedy eyes scanned the room, looking at the various treasures rolling with void energy. There were countless void stones, some strange furs, and other grimoires. Instantly, Ryuk placed everything into his shop inventory. And of course, he didn't forget to place the life replacement art as well. While he might not need it now, it was still a treasure. Ryuk had to make sure he wiped everything clean. With everything stored, Ryuk looked at the sparkling cave ceiling, clapped his hands, and began heading out. He had done a good job. But just as he was about to leave, ding! Host is forgetting something, the system stated, and Ryuk's eyes flashed. And what is that? New artifact found. Name: Abyss Cave. Grade: I. Description: speeds up the growth rate of anything that possesses dark energy. The system's notification flashed, and Ryuk's eyes widened in shock, looking at the grotesque, ominous dark cave. So this is an artifact. I thought it was just a shiny cave. Ryuk stared with fascination, but the greedy light in his eyes grew even brighter as he walked toward the cave. Grabbing its edges, veins bulged on his arms as the floor beneath him cracked into nothing. With a forceful yank, the cave was lifted into the air, instantly fading away, stored into Ryuk's shop inventory. Now, I've gotten it all. Time to head to the next beast, Ryuk stated to himself. But he had yet to take a single step when a voice echoed. Oh, there's no need for that, you bastard. His eyes snapped up. He raised his head to the sky, finding four enormous shadows looming over his entire body. Are those? Holy mother of sweet monkey milk, Ryuk called out in shock as he looked above him. And then, boom! The ground where he stood caved in completely as he shot away from where he had been standing. But just a second later, it exploded into a deep chasm as a total of 4 creatures slammed onto the ground, shaking the entire terrain with their might. Ryuk's narrowed eyes flashed among them before a smirk appeared on his face. Finally found out, huh? I thought you all were dumb enough to watch me take you out one by one. Ryuk called out, waving around him and clearing away the dust. Before him stood a total of 4 creatures, each oozing with a vast amount of power that wouldn't pale in comparison to the Rattleconda he had just killed. The first and largest beast was a boar-like creature the size of a small fortress, bizarrely covered in molten rock-like plating that resembled that of a crocodile. Every single step it took caused lava to seep from the ground, and its tough skin seemed so powerful that Ryuk doubted anything could get through it at all. Its billowing steam escaped its large nostrils with every breath as its full crimson eyes stared at Ryuk with an ominous gleam. Host has come across an infernal tusk beast. The second creature was a large wolf, about 12 meters in height, with electrified dark fur and legs reinforced by crystallized energy conduits. Beneath its feet, massive electromagnetic pulses spread out, devastating the ground and sending destructive arcs of lightning through the fissures it created. Host has come across a Thunderhowl Colossus. The third creature was a hulking, 15-meter-tall ape-like beast with an obsidian-like exoskeleton plating that gleamed like polished volcanic glass. Its massive shoulders and muscular frame gave it a hulking, tank-like presence, and each step it took left the ground trembling from sheer weight. Its disproportionately long arms ended in massive spiked fists. Its face was a blend of primal rage and sinister intelligence, burning green eyes glowing from within its eyes. Now, this one might be the real deal, Ryuk mused to himself as the notification flashed. Host has come across an obsidian juggernaut. The last beast, however, was quite the peculiar one. It was none other than a small crow, barely a meter in height, seemingly a grade B creature. But it was sitting on the shoulders of the ape-like creature, making Ryuk wonder why it was among these beasts in the first place. It seemed that the creatures had sensed the deaths of two of their own, and the sheer scale of battle had rippled to them, alerting them of his presence. And now they had banded together, choosing to deal with him all at once. For decades now, there has been peace in our world, and the hierarchy has been stabilized. A clear voice rang out as Ryuk returned his gaze to the small bird, which was the one speaking. But now, due to your appearance, you have ruined the hierarchy. You killed two of our own who upheld the peace in this system, and the councils have determined you to be a threat that must be stopped. The crow called out to Ryuk, who furrowed his brows for a while, as if in deep thought. The four beasts watched as a melancholic expression appeared on his face. I destroyed the peace of the forest, didn't I? That seems very true. If I had never come, you all would have remained in your slumber, and the peace would have remained. But my greed and selfishness have led me to destroy two of your own. Ryuk spoke, causing the crow to raise a brow. It did not expect one so young and powerful like Ryuk to give in so quickly. Where was his youthful pride and arrogance? I am very sorry for my actions, for disrupting the peace in this forest, and as a way to repay, I will leave this place and never step foot in it again. Nor will I bring an end to any more beasts. Ryuk swore, causing absolute silence to reign in the area. This I promise you with all of my heart. Now I will peacefully leave your forest alone. Goodbye. With that, Ryuk turned his back and slowly walked away, both arms in his pockets. His guard has been let down. This is the perfect time to one-shot him to death, the crow thought as its eyes signaled towards the Thunderhowl Colossus. The air behind Ryuk shook violently as something flashed toward him with speed, causing all of his hairs to rise on their ends. He had only managed to turn his head back when the air was instantly ripped apart as a gigantic pillar of lightning smashed into Ryuk, who instinctively hardened space between If and him. But it proved to be futile, as the space before him cracked into pieces. His will was instantly torn through, and the beam of light crashed against Ryuk, who could only grit his teeth together as he was lifted off his feet and sent flying straight into 3 trees. Smoke rose into the air and slowly, it cleared away, allowing the beasts to see the vision before them. And there stood none other than the battered figure of Ryuk, lightning crackling over his body along with raw ashes, and an angered expression on his face. What are you doing? He asked, as the crow cackled at his pathetic-looking state. I am afraid you will have to return the artifacts you took from the beasts' abodes. The flame gem within the lava crocodile's home and the cave of the Rattleconda. These things belong to us, and therefore we will be taking them back. The crow said as Ryuk slowly rose to his feet, wobbling around before coming to a stop. And why couldn't you have simply asked? Was the attack necessary? He asked, gritting his teeth, his gaze boring into the crow. Well, I just thought that while we're at it, we might as well take revenge for our fallen comrades. Shouldn't we? And what other way to make sure you truly never come back nor harm any beast than to retrieve your life too, TCH. You really thought we would have left you leave here alive even if you returned all you stole and swear never to come back? You're truly very naive. The crow declared as the beasts cackled evilly. But then, he. Nice. Just what I wanted to hear.